so this is going
Oh,
well
good stuff.
already.
Good stuff.
This is Pictures Without Pictures, and it's a movie podcast for a guy who doesn't watch many movies at all, and a guy who does. I'm Christian, and with me is Reese.
Hello.
Hi, that's Reese. This is our first time doing anything like this, so apologies if there's any kind of technical hiccups in any way. We'll be getting this worked out as we go along. Currently, I have two windows open because I only have the one monitor, and I'm looking between them frantically to make sure nothing is going wrong. And then in front of me on my phone, I have my notes. The notes I've taken about our upcoming movie, which we'll get to in a second. And that movie is Iron Man. We decided to start with Iron Man because I think it's a perfect starting point. Because, well, first of all, some background about me. The reason I really wanted to do this podcast is because I play a whole bunch of video games. I listen to a whole bunch of movies. I listen to a whole bunch of music. I watch a whole bunch of TV shows. But I'm awful for watching movies. I'm the kind of guy who you can say, like, oh yeah, like you make a reference and it'll go over my head, and it'll be like, you know, from Jurassic Park. I'll be like, oh, I've never seen Jurassic Park. It'll be like, you've never seen Jurassic Park? And that shit happens to me all the fucking time. It's because movies are like these 1.5 to 2 hour long time investments, and I have a shit attention span, so I just tend to not make the time to sit down and watch them. So I have huge gaps in cultural, pop culture, like knowledge and trivia and all that kind of stuff. And like, I love stories, and there's loads of stories I've never experienced because of that. So that's kind of my approach to movies in life. What about you, Reese?
My approach to movies is a lot more fleshed out, I'd say. I growing up, I used to watch a lot of movies, varying from anything really, from fantasy to horror. Horror being a favorite of mine. And my movie knowledge goes even before my time. So, born in '95, and I've watched a lot of movies from like the '80s and early '90s as well. So
That's cool.
my general movie knowledge is a lot better. Not as like crazy good as obviously people that are older than me, but actually born in these times typically is. But in terms of just generally, I have a general love for the movies and the music and the compositions and stuff. And I find it super interesting.
I know you know stuff about camera angles and that kind of shit. Like,
Yes, it's very interesting. I do like camera angles. My favorite camera angle being my favorite shot composition being a dolly zoom, which is great. And if you don't know what a dolly zoom is, it's not that complicated, but it's honestly one of my favorite things.
basically, you told me about a dolly zoom once, and that's forever cemented you
Literally-
in my mind as the guy who knows stuff about movies and cinematography.
Literally, whenever a dolly zoom happens when I'm watching a film with either you or Molly, and a dolly zoom happens, that you'll literally just be like, oh, it's the thing you like.
Yeah, pretty much. I think, what was it I saw recently where that happened? I don't even remember. I'll tell you this though, it wasn't a movie. Iron Man, I'm thinking, what was the movie I saw before Iron Man? It was probably...
They did one
Star
in
Wars.
the new trailer when Destiny 2's new stuff came out. They did
Oh,
one in
that
that
must
trailer.
have been it, yeah.
And someone was tweeting about it, saying like it was his pride and joy, and I was like, yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking the last movie we saw in the theatres together was Star Wars not The Last Jedi. I always confuse that. Star Wars Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah.
And then I'm thinking movies I've watched by myself at home since have pretty much just been prequels again, and Rogue One and Solo. Or Solo and
Yeah.
Rogue One, because I was on a huge Star Wars binge a few weeks ago. But so my kind of history of movies is basically just the superhero genre and Star Wars, and I'm a little embarrassed about it. I don't have, like, there's the occasional movie, like I've seen Arrival. I wasn't expecting to suddenly start listing off the non-superhero movies I've seen, so I'm suddenly put on the spot a little bit by myself. I literally can't think of anything else right now, but there are others. And I've seen bits and pieces of movies, famous movies, like I've seen a little bit of Predator. I think I've seen the If It Bleeds We Can Kill It part.
That's a good movie.
I've seen some movies.
Definitely dated, but a good movie.
Yeah, I've seen some movies as a kid. that I've forgotten most of now. So I have seen Jurassic Park, but the only part I remember is the guy getting eaten in the toilet. It's funny how that stays with you.
Yeah.
But the kind of idea of this podcast is to go through some classics like that, like Jurassic Park and maybe the Predator and Alien movies, and maybe even the famous Predator versus Alien. I'm joking, I know it's the other way around. But stuff like that. Also, stuff will be limited by what we have access to. I personally have Netflix and Disney Plus, so I'm not sure what Reese has. I know he has Disney Plus.
I have Netflix as well, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Me and Molly share Netflix. So.
But we can always like rent something through Amazon or something if we have to.
Yeah. We can always just pass it around. We can always chip in for it.
But I figured, even though I was talking about how most of the movies I've seen are the superhero ones, I figured we'd start with not just Iron Man, but Phase 1 of the Marvel Universe in general. Because firstly, Iron Man's perfect to start with because that's the only MCU movie I've never seen, which is kind of weird considering it's the one that... Well, I say it's the one that kicked it all off, but it's the original Hulk movie part of it, because I think that's a point of contention. Or maybe that's just...
No,
it's not part of it?
It's different.
Okay.
Different actors, different story.
Because I saw an article about the original.
Well, it
Hulk
depends
actor.
on which one you're talking about, because there's the original one, which was shot like a comic
Oh yeah,
book,
no,
which
not
was
the
quite fun.
not the super old one. I
And
mean,
then
like, the
there's
most
the
recent
one which had the oh god, I just remember it because there's the scene where I can't remember who the actor is, but he goes up to Hulk like, "Oh, is that what you got?" And then he kicks him into a tree and he dies.
That sounds good. That sounds like maybe it should go on the list. There's going to be a great big list I'm going to compile at some point of possible future Pictures Without Pictures movies. Oh, we didn't explain the name, although I don't think it really needs explaining.
Yeah.
Normally names for projects do not come to me easily, but this one kind of did. Pictures Without Pictures, the whole premise is you go to the pictures, but we're not providing the pictures because copyright is a thing. So instead of watching them with you, we're doing it's like a book club. It's like you go away, we'll I should have discussed this with you earlier, but we'll decide what the movie is for next week, and then or we could discuss it, I guess, and then decide on it before the end of a podcast, and then everyone who's listening or watching can go away and watch it between now and the next podcast. Or if they're already familiar with it, you don't have to watch it.
I feel like we've set ourselves up quite easily for now though, because we're doing phase 1 stuff.
Yeah.
So if we just continue doing phase 1 stuff for now, and then we'll just work out if we want to do it chronologically or in the order the films came out or however.
I'm trying to think of if we're doing it chronologically, that would start with Captain America and then that's
why
Marvel.
I corrected myself.
Yeah. I think, is it 4 after this? 4, that's the whole thing. 4.
I think 4 came out
Can't sing with
next.
THs.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll look it up.
And then it probably would have been Captain America or something like that.
Actually, I can look it up right now. MCU Phase 1 order. I'm pretty sure it's 4. Apparently the Incredible Hulk is part of Phase 1, and it came out after Iron Man. So it's between Apparently, hang on. Let me make sure I'm looking at a reputable website right now.
Done by...
I know the actor changed, but...
What's the director of that one? I'm trying to remember what the director's called.
You're going to make me say his name. Louis Leterrier? Is that his name?
Okay, that's not the one I think I have. Okay, that's fine.
So it goes Iron Man, The Incredible Hulk, so I guess that could be next week's film. And then I didn't realise it goes...
I guess they did weirdly leave it on a cliffhanger in that one, and then did an all that change.
Well, I've never seen that one either.
You disregarded the story. It's alright.
And then it's Iron Man 2, which I'm surprised that it was immediately a sequel before anything else. And then 4, Captain America and the Avengers. So that could be our next few weeks. That could.
Yeah, that's a good setup.
But yeah, Iron Man. So growing up, there were 2 superheroes. Actually, there were 3. There was Superman, which I didn't really give a shit about.
Boring.
Yeah, boring. Although I actually don't feel that way nowadays, but I did as good.
Oh yeah.
Batman and Spider-Man. That was like the holy trinity for me, and I think I was aware that other superheroes existed, but I didn't really care. It was just those ones, and obviously I ended up watching the original Spider-Man movies, and I ended up watching the Christopher Nolan Batman movies, and that was kind of my relationship with superheroes in general for years, until like 18, 19 years old, I decided. Oh, hang on, no, the MCU happened before that. Ignore me. But like, I got into comics around like 19, 20 years old. Like, I was a late comer to comics in a weird way. I feel like most people grow up with comics and grow out of them. I grew into them because comics were awesome.
But I didn't really do any comic stuff myself either. So, in terms of superhero stuff, Teen Titans.
Yeah.
Used to watch the show.
Oh yeah, I
on
watched
TV.
that too. Yeah.
Very into that. So obviously I knew, I did know about sort of some of the other stuff, but I think in terms of general, like, what heroes you're aware of is definitely, I think it's about the same, just because obviously those were a bit more prominent. Because obviously Batman had consistent movies coming out, as the Spider-Man and Superman, I think, had a lot of older movies. So
Yeah.
I think it was just one of those things that kind of just stuck around because it was one of the. I imagine Superman was one of the first superhero movies to actually properly take off. So
I don't even know the history of superhero movies like that, but I think you're probably right.
I feel like it is just because
I know-
whenever you think whenever anything about Superman comes up, it's always like the old stuff and about how the actor fell off a horse and paralyzed himself. But anyway,
Oof. Yeah. As far
yeah,
as
I
I'm
heard about
aware,
that. It was horrible.
as far as I'm aware, I think the Spider-Man movies came before the Christopher Nolan Batman movies, and they really popularized the idea of a superhero movie. But when you look back at our kids' cartoons that we grew up with, it's surprising how much of that stuff is influenced by superhero stuff. Like Danny Phantom, it's basically a superhero thing.
Yeah,
Ben 10,
Ben
obviously.
10. Yeah.
Yeah, it's sometimes I gotta break myself out of a just Marvel and DC limited way of thinking. But
There was a I can't remember what it was called, but there was one which was pretty much, I can't remember what it was called now, but there was one where it was very sort of Asian themed, a Chinese sort of style, and it was about some kid who can turn into a dragon or something, and it was the whole thing with that. I can't remember specifically what it was called. I think the character was called Jake, but I can't remember the stuff for it. But the idea was he was being trained to use the power of a dragon, and his whole catchphrase when he turned into a dragon was "Dragon up." God, that's dredging up some memories. But yeah,
That's
I guess
cool.
that kind of counts because it's the same kind of deal, isn't it? It's fighting crime as the super being.
I mean, I guess as far as mainstream media goes, cartoons are modern day comics for that demographic. So I guess I shouldn't be that surprised.
We Blade as well, technically superhero stuff because that's Marvel, isn't it? Blade movies.
Yeah,
Blade movies
I don't know anything about
but
Blade.
technically Marvel.
I've played around
I've
as
watched all
him
the films,
in
so-
Lego Marvel superheroes. That's about it. That's all I know about Blade.
I've watched all the films, so.
Cool. I'll add it to the list.
This is somewhat related to current events, but there's a scene where because it's about vampires, and there's a scene in the first film where a vampire attacks this pregnant lady. He's all burnt up, and a vampire attacks this pregnant lady, who I think in the story it looks like Blade's mum or something, so that's why he goes to help, and he pulls the vampire off her and shoots him, and obviously he's the vampire's all burnt up, so he's all gross looking, and he looks absolutely monstrous. And the police come in, and the vampire roars at them, runs away, but then they shoot at Blade, which obviously he's a black man, so it's very and he literally turns to him and goes, "Motherfucker, what are you doing?"
Yeah.
It's such a good moment. It's so good.
Yeah.
Makes me laugh every time. It's very real. But yeah, anyway.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get massively off topic.
I was gonna say as well, Iron Man. I remember I knew of him peripherally, just kind of by name, and maybe I saw some artwork of him. I remember thinking, well, that's fucking dumb. How is he's made of iron? How does that work? How's he run around? He just sounds like a stupid superhero. I don't care about him. And even so far as when the movie came out, I don't think I paid attention to it at all. I think the first time I paid attention to the Marvel Cinematic Universe was when the Avengers came out, and everyone was raving about how good the Avengers was. Although I can't remember if I saw 4 before or after that. I remember I saw 4 at my sister's house, which is an okay movie. We'll get to that in a few weeks. It is.
It's alright. It does its job, I think. For setting up a character, it does its job. Though I feel like it definitely doesn't hold a candle to Iron Man.
Yeah, I think.
And Captain America as well. Both very good films.
What makes
Thor is definitely the weaker of the three.
I think what makes Iron Man for me as a hero isn't so much the rule of cool of like, wow, look at him, he's in an iron suit. Well, not iron, but you know what I mean. Like he's in a suit of technology. He's got all these missiles and stuff. That kind of
Titanium gold alloy.
that's the one he mentions it in the movie.
Is it?
Yeah. He's like,
that's
oh,
it.
technically it's not iron. I like how they did that anyway. But that's not the kind of like, I don't see that. It's cool, but I don't see that stuff as like my shit, my jam, my
This isn't, yeah.
particular flavour of toast. I see that more.
Like you don't look at it and go, "That's my shit right there."
No, what makes Iron
my
Man
good shit.
for me is Robert Downey Jr.
Oh yeah.
And I guess comic wise, just the character of Tony Stark in general. But I say that with the massive caveat of the first note I have here is the quote, "Good God, you're a woman," and then oof. Tony Stark, this is another note. I have a few notes down. Tony is a real piece of shit.
It's so I have a counter argument to that. I don't think it's so much he's a piece of shit. Is that he is very direct in that he doesn't sugarcoat or anything. He's just very direct with everything he says because he has no filter.
I guess, but that can still be part
But
of...
again, yes, it does make you look like an asshole. Yes.
But I think...
But my point being, obviously, it is very much just he talks and talks and talks.
I think the main takeaway from that, though, is he grows as a character from that starting point of him being an asshole.
I mean, from the start of that, like from that scene there, you can tell like he is not in that, like he should not be in that position where he is. He is completely out of his element. There, it is. He is so foreign in that environment. It is hilarious, which is why he makes jokes and stuff, and you know that start is very funny.
Yeah, and I like how hard the transition is from he gets some joking and laughing, and he gets them all happy, and then they're all having a nice time, and then reminder, hi, this is a war zone, and they all die horribly, and I think they did that quite effectively.
I think the intro to that film was very good.
Yeah.
It sets the tone very well. It sets the tone of a man who is very much in a line of work which he is completely separated from, and when put into that environment, suffers massively. And obviously it is very much affected.
Yeah.
Because I mean, the way Robert Downey Jr. acts in that is very good, but he is very panicked, and he's just
exactly,
like
and
you can tell like
I think he carries that energy all the way through his career as Iron Man. Like there are moments in Avengers movies where they are not afraid to show how fucking terrified he is. They give him moments of, holy fuck, all of these people around me are superheroes. I'm just an idiot in a metal suit. What am I supposed to do against this? Oh, and we should talk about this as well. We're looking at this from a retrospective point of view, so we're not necessarily going to be avoiding spoilers on future Avengers films in this conversation. We're going to be talking a little bit about Infinity War.
Sorry, carry on.
We might be mentioning stuff from Infinity War and future movies, but yeah.
If it's specifically for the idea of Iron Man specifically, like branching off of that from for this one specifically anyway, obviously we'll do it differently for each character. We'll be focusing on the character rather than the movies themselves, I guess. But, in terms of how their actions in this movie affect what they do later on or stuff like that.
Yeah, and how things are called back.
Yes.
But also, when we were just talking then about how it starts off really light-hearted and then it's suddenly like hard cuts into serious shit, I think that's also kind of an allegory for, if I'm using that correctly, it's been a while, sorry. It's kind of an allegory for how he is as a character in general. Like he's always making jokes and trying to make light of situations when there is serious shit going on. I think it was a perfect way to introduce him.
Yes, it is. I mean, later on it becomes obvious it is more of a coping mechanism as well.
Yeah.
But what I was going to say before about the terrifiedness of everything, it reminds me of the scene in Civil War when Bucky's going mad and he tries to shoot Tony Stark in the face, but then he grabs it with his like weird mini thing, and the look on his face is pure panic.
Yeah, like
because he's not in his suit.
Died. Yeah.
He's like, I just caught a bullet in my hand. I very nearly died in that moment.
I think it's a little bit of imposter syndrome as well. Like I I'm like, everyone else looks at him, we're like, wow, it's Iron Man, he's impenetrable, he's protected by the suit of armor, and he's like, no, because I know how all this shit works, so I know how it breaks as well.
That's an interesting point, which I will bring up again once we get more into this. I don't want to bring that point up now because I feel like it will naturally get into it as we start talking about the other characters.
Okay. I almost asked you last night, and then we had to save it for the podcast moment, if you caught this. And I'm not going to die on this hill. I'm not sure if you can really make a case for it. But I took note of every time Tony Stark, 3 times I noticed, Tony Stark being viewed through the lens of a camera in the actual movie. Because at the very start, the first time it happens, he's in the Jeep. And he's with the soldiers. And he warms everyone up to him. And the soldier says, is it cool if I get a photo of you with my kids? And I also wrote down how that kind of dates the movie, that you use a digital camera instead of a camera phone. Because obviously this was a little bit before camera phones. Just like a year or 2 before they really took off. When I say camera phones, I mean smartphones. But that's the first time we see him, and that's like happy-go-lucky, like Tony Stark as you see him on the covers of magazines and stuff. And then the next time we see him in front of a camera is when he's being interrogated. And I think that's a really important contrast, because suddenly he's out of his element. He's a wealthy rich man with no power. And his life is in danger, and that's a formative moment for him, and that is in front of another camera. And then the third camera I noticed was all the way towards the end of the film. If I can find my note here. I should probably have read through my notes again before I started this. Hang on just a second. I think it's maybe the press conference.
Are you talking about the press conference at the very end?
Yeah, when he reveals that he's Iron Man.
Right.
Oh no! Sorry,
so I
got that wrong. The third camera, specific one camera I'm on about, is when, and you'll laugh because I don't know the name of a bald-headed dude who turns out to be the main villain.
Obadiah.
Obadiah
Stane.
When he betrays him is the third time you see Tony Stark in front of a camera, and I think that's important because it's false. His smile is false because he's currently learning how he's been betrayed by his close friend and mentor of, I think they said 30 years. Basically of a father figure in his life, and that happens in front of a camera, and I think it's important in a way that these 2 big moments happen in front of a camera, whereas the first time you see him in front of a camera is the version of him that he wants to betray. He has to try keep that up.
Could also say like his demeanor is I feel like there's one like the first press conference when he comes back after being rescued is also can be put in with that as well, especially when you put it together with the image that he looks at through the Mark II mask when he's looking at the image on the TV screen, because the image is very specific, and it's somewhat symbolic as well, because it's Tony Stark is sort of like he looks like crap basically, so obviously he's still like injured and stuff, and he's like half like he looks like he's like falling or like getting up or something, and Obadiah is like looking over him from the podium. It's a very sort of oppressive sort of thing. I think that's definitely like that's the transition to be like, okay, this is like a person that's obviously oppressing Tony, and it's becoming more and more obvious, and then it comes out obviously in front of the camera, and it's like, oh, okay.
I also like this quote from early in the movie, when it goes back before he gets captured, to show what he's like as a billionaire, living it up kind of Hollywood lifestyle. He said to a reporter, "My old man had a philosophy, peace means having a bigger stick than the other guy." And she says back to him, "That's a great line coming from the guy selling the sticks." And I like how he didn't really have a quick answer to that, apart from he immediately went back into joking and misogyny. That was his like reflex. He didn't have an immediate answer for. And then
I think that whole scene is very interesting because it does that whole interview is very important because it does show how because there's something that's brought up later on a lot is how naive Tony Stark is to what Obadiah is doing, and how the company is not really Tony Stark's, even though it's got his name on it. That's all that's really to do with him, and something that's constantly brought up is his naivety, and that kind of shows it as well because he goes on about, oh, we've done all this good stuff, and it's like, right, but you're still effectively dealing in death is what the report is saying. So, and he's kind of like, well, no, we're doing all this good. Like it's very like he believes what he's doing is good, and is a means to an end, I guess. And then obviously he becomes enlightened to that when he realizes, oh, these people are using my weapons for horrible things.
Yeah, I like how one of the first things he sees when he's in his kind of fall from grace as he gets kidnapped is a Stark Industries logo on one of the, like, is it a missile that lands near him?
Yeah, it's one of his missiles. It lands like right next to him. He goes, "Oh
Yeah.
shit!"
And I think it's one of those shots where like the focus is it changes focus from the missile to his face, like the oh fuck, that's Stark Industries kind of a thing. I thought that was it, like maybe not subtle, but it doesn't need to be. It was cool.
That is something interesting. Is the idea that he isn't Stark Industries, and I think he realizes that like a lot more as he goes along when he's trying to take responsibility for things.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of points where he'll go, I need to take responsibility, and then Obadiah's like, you? And he's like, well, for the company, of course. Like, he backtracks a little.
Yeah.
But it being like, I need to take responsibility for the company because this is my name, blah, 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 blah. Like, and he goes off on that sort of tangent, when obviously his whole thing is that he's trying to take responsibility because he thinks he is the reason that everything is fucked, basically.
Yeah. So, first time we see Tony's house, my first thought was, oh, this is a place that I've seen get blown up a lot. Which is an interesting perspective you get from having seen Iron Man 2 and 3 in the Avengers movies first. So I thought I'd put a note of that.
Yeah, that's yeah.
Do you remember his pitch when he was selling the missiles? I took note of his...
Oh, God, yeah.
I took note of his language when he said, find an excuse to let one of these off the chain. Which I thought was like, oh, that's so awful. Like, he is literally just thinking of, look at my... Like, I want you to see my invention and how clever it is. And at that point in time, he literally does not factor in human life.
Yeah.
It was just I mean, it's that struck me.
He sees it as a big show, doesn't he? I mean, the way he acts and when the missile goes off and how he's standing, like he's some sort of messiah showing this amazing thing to all these people, you know?
Which, by the way, I see in promo images a lot for when, like, Sky Movies is on and stuff, which I think could be a little interesting.
It's a good shot.
It is a good shot. But, I also like how he stumbles a bit, like, from the Force. I'm not trying to be like, everything is symbolic, but like...
I mean, I also thought what you're about to say, I think. Carry on.
Well, that was pretty much the whole thing, just like, the fact that he's like, whoa, look at me, like, look what I've done, and then he stumbles a bit from the force of it is very...
Yeah.
He's not completely... I'm grasping at words now. He's not... he's... I don't know, it's just a sign of, like, how it's all a facade, and he was kind of not fully aware of the actual level of destruction that they have, maybe, and that's like indicative of a deeper problem. I liked how Tony's beard grew a little bit during his operation period. Did you notice that? It was very, very trim, and then it was just ever so slightly less trim when he woke up from being out of conscious for a while, just to show that. I thought that was a nice little attention to detail.
Yeah, there is a lot of like little things like that I know. Another thing like that is when he's sat on the sofa, like just like messing with one of his arms, and obviously the thought is, how is he powering it? It's just like the arm bit, but there's a wire that goes into his chest from the thing, which I thought was a nice touch. It's just like, oh, okay, that's they definitely thought of everything.
Yeah. I put down here that I never knew the full origin of Tony and his chest thing. I later just referred to it as a chesticle in my notes, just what you should know. His chesticle. I didn't realise it was literally just something to power a magnet to keep shards out of his heart. That's horrifying and
I mean, and then he goes on to make it powerful so then he can run the suit. Yeah. That's why he makes it more powerful.
It's like, oh, you've just made it so instead of lasting a week, it lasts 40 lifetimes. So he's like, yep. But if I remember right, I think in Iron Man 2 maybe he solves that entire problem. But it's, oh god, it's kind of horrifying. Just the idea that, oh, if this fails for some reason, I've got, these shards, this debris which is just inches away from my heart, which could kill me. And I think that's kind of a little bit of insight for us as the audience to see what he sees, which is everyone looks at him and they're like, wow, Iron Man, but he knows his technology and he knows how it breaks. And I guess it's similar to, in a weird kind of a way, once you've built your own PC, you know how it could break, and it feels a bit more fragile to you than like when you were younger and you had a pre-built PC and it was just the box, and if a box broke, it was just annoying because you didn't see it coming. If you know what I mean.
Yeah.
The more you know, the more kind of like cursed you are in a way.
But there's stuff like that is like with his like contingencies and stuff. Like he is a smart person. Things are engineered by design, and so like when he gets into moments with like, oh, you know when he's flying up and he freezes over, he has like a failsafe thing to like open the flaps.
Yeah, although I do also like how that was Icarus trying to fly too close to the sun, but instead it was the moon. And I like how they paid that off later as well in the final. I almost said final boss fight. In the final fight,
yeah. And that's a point as well. Obadiah full out comes out and says, "We're not Iron Man." And I'm just like, all right, didn't know he said that. Because obviously the villain he plays is Ironmonger.
Yeah. I figured that out. But Marvel movies are very. We don't say the names of the hero characters' hero names or the villain characters' villain names very often. We kind of either assume that you know it, or we're making a film for you as someone who doesn't read comics, so we're not going to push that aspect of it. And I understand that that's why they do that, but at the same time I was like, wait, what's he in the comics again? Because I've not really read many Iron Man specific comics, and from afar it doesn't seem like he has very many interesting villains. And I'd say that applies to his films as well. The most interesting Iron Man villain is Iron Man, like his own problems with alcoholism and his self-destructive nature. But you can't make a whole movie out of that. I'll be willing to see him try.
Yeah. Maybe a bit too dark though for a superhero movie. Considering the target audience.
Yeah, true. That's a thing as well. I put down later on in my notes as well, but it's a shame they don't explore a little more the betrayal of a mentor figure of 30 years, because that would be huge. And in comics, a lot of the time, they're long-running things, so they have the space to explore that kind of thing. But in comic book movies, it's more of a, this is the villain of the movie, so we need to set him up and defeat him in the same movie. There's not really enough time for that much emotional strife, or maybe it's the wrong place to do it because of like the theme of the movie as well, or just the kind of general tone of the movie, I guess I should say.
Yeah.
But they did include some sad parts. I put in big capital letters, "Sad Beanie Stark, oh how he brood." Because when he was captured and he was in that beanie, he looked so sad.
He looked very sad.
But I liked as well. I think this is probably a testament to Robert Downey Jr.'s acting. When he was being told about his problem and how he was hooked up to a car battery, he looked afraid and sad. And then when it was brought up that, you know, he was potentially a week away from death if they didn't come up with another solution, that was when he truly looked heartbroken. And I think it's interesting that the most emotion we get out of Tony Stark, at least this far into the movie, is at the prospect of his own death. Like, not anyone else's. No, he's heartbroken that he might die. And I thought that was quite important. And Robert Downey Jr. kind of nailed that.
It's funny because they're in that whole like section as well, when they end up trying to torture him to get him to obviously agree to make the missile. It kind of shows how there's a very brief thing that basically shows how Tony Stark's mind works, where he's like trying to think of a way to escape, and then there's a flash of the when he's being dunked in the tank. There's a flash of what would then be his little chest reactor thing.
Yeah.
His little mini arc reactor. There's like a flash, and it's like, oh shit! So this is literally the moment where he works out what to do.
Oh, I
like,
didn't catch
in
that.
This moment.
That's clever.
Yeah, there's like
It's like
there's
a
like a
little light
flash.
bulb
it's
above
like
the
for a
head.
couple frames.
Yeah,
It's like
I
for
caught
a
the
couple
flash.
frames when they pull him out.
I didn't catch
and
the
it's
symbolism.
literally of the thing he makes.
Yeah.
The little art character, and I was like, oh, that's really cool. Like that's how his mind works, where he's in the situation, and then he's like, okay, I need a plan to get out. Boom, got it. I can power something with this, but then what do I? And then obviously, then they go, okay, I can, and then he draws it up and then shows off to Jensen.
That's cool. That kind of went over my head. This is why I'm glad there's
it's
two
something I
of us.
noticed, and it's like, yeah, that's different perspectives, isn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah,
I like.
something that really stuck with me.
I did like that whole suit construction process. They did make as big of a deal out of it as they should have, I think. And
Yeah.
I liked how like the kind of heavy metal music behind it had hints of the Iron Man theme. Ramin Djawadi, by the way, he composed the music. I caught that in the credits. I was like, oh, no wonder I like the soundtrack to this film. I don't really care about a lot of Marvel superhero soundtracks, but this one was pretty good. I might look it up later.
Yeah.
But why
It's
couldn't
good,
they?
it's good soundtrack.
Why couldn't they tell he was making a suit instead of them?
Yeah, that's the thing. There's literally a point where he's like moving a leg, and
Yeah.
they're looking at it and they're like, huh.
That's a funny missile. Maybe it's like a kick reaction thing. I don't know.
Oh, it's so odd.
I think it's one of those plot holes you kind of just have to accept in a way.
Yeah.
Because otherwise a lot of the Iron Man like origin story is compromised that way. I think it's like a minor problem overall that would be too much of a cost to try and fix. Star Wars movie. But I thought it was fun to just be like, really, they couldn't tell. And I think there was a moment where they tried to have a thing where they were like, what's he doing? No, go in there and tell him to make the missile. But then they go back and he keeps making the fucking suit, and they don't care. What?
Yeah. I think the whole point is they've realized he's not making. He's obviously fucking with something, so they go away and try to scare him, basically.
I think
which doesn't work because then
No.
the carriers are making it anyway.
I think one way they could have maybe alleviated that problem a little bit, maybe not entirely, but would be to have a conversation between those villains and have them be like, wait, that's not a missile. Hang on, let's see what he's creating and then we'll take it from him. It might be better. Like, I think that maybe that was like a deleted scene or something, but I think that would have helped the feasibility of that situation maybe a little bit.
Yeah. It's a weird thing to try and work out with the circumstances that were set up. But you know,
The
it is
Mark
what it is.
the Mark 1 I put is a chonky boy.
It is a very chunky, very weldy boy.
Yeah, he's so
Got
wide.
weld marks all over it. Yeah. Yeah, he's a thick boy.
The Iron Man we've got up on the stream right now, I'm not sure if that suit is from Iron Man 1 or if it's from one of the later films. Looking at it,
It
now.
looks like it's from Iron Man 1. Well,
Yeah,
it actually
might
looks
be
like
Mark
a toy.
3.
I think it's just a toy that someone
Maybe.
done something with.
Basically, the way I'm
But
doing
I think
this,
it's Mark 3.
the way I'm doing this to give a little glimpse behind the curtain, that is this amazing production value. I'm just capturing a window which has a wallpaper engine wallpaper in it because I couldn't figure out visualizers. And I don't have a webcam or anything, so. But I think it looks good. I think it's neat. The dude who helped him make the suit when he was like
Jensen.
when he was like, I told you I'm going to see my family. My family died. I've seen
Yeah.
that in something else really recently, and it just stood out to me as a trope because of that. Like, it was done well, but I was like, oh, this again. I think it's just unfortunate that maybe I'd seen something else with it, and I'm trying to think of what it is. It might have been something like that happened in Rogue One, maybe? I don't remember. Anyway, but the quote, and you might know what I'm about to say. Don't waste it. Don't waste your life. That's the last thing he says to Tony.
Yeah.
And jumping ahead a few phases, isn't that what Tony mutters as he's dying in Endgame? He's like, I didn't waste it. I didn't waste it. I think that's
Is that what he says?
Yeah, it's a
Okay.
callback to the first
I
movie.
might have missed that.
I remember a few people were talking about it after it came out. I might be wrong, but
I might have missed that if it was the case.
I think that was really cool the
I'll
second
look
he
into
said
after.
it. The second he said it, I was like, oh, fuck. I'm pretty sure it comes up in some way anyway. So I think that was nice. He really took that to heart.
Yeah, I mean he does. I mean you can tell from the film he does because there's a point where he gets quite emotional about it and says like that he shouldn't be alive, but he is, and there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
which is pretty powerful, and it convinces Pepper to help him,
Mm. True.
which is very good. It's a very good moment, and kind of that whole moment is very good, and it kind of shows like he is carrying this quite heavily,
Yeah.
and he is doing something that is very Tony Stark like and asking for help.
Yeah.
So
And I was gonna say I was not expecting the Mark 1 to fly. It looked too big to fly.
yep, it did fly for about 3 seconds.
And when he landed, I was like, and he didn't like die from the impact. I was like, that's kind of unfeasible. And then I remember, oh right, yeah, this is a superhero movie.
Yeah, it's a bit weird.
I noticed he used a peace sign to signal the helicopters that fly over him to find him, and that's the same sign that the soldier was using in the picture.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's hugely symbolic, but I think it was something that definitely. All of these kind of small little things aren't accidental, so it's worth noting.
Yeah, it is all very, very good. It's there for a reason. Most things, it is one of those things that I like about movies. Is movies can be quite easy to deconstruct because everything in it is in it for a reason. Whether it's a specific shot is done in a certain way or a certain thing is said, it's all in there for a reason.
I think,
and working that out is usually the more interesting part, I find.
I think if TV shows are prose, movies are poetry. In that, it's a shorter form of fiction or a shorter form of narrative, I should say. But there's more there to take apart and think about.
Yeah.
Certain shows still do that really well as well, like Game of Thrones did for at least the first 6 seasons. Like there was so much to unpack in every episode.
Yeah.
But movies.
Well, it's because there were so many separate stories going on with that, though.
Yeah, I think movies generally do symbolism and stuff like that better.
Mm-hmm. Oh, because there's more of a focus. With a series, there's so many different factors going on. With a movie, there is a direct focus almost.
Yeah.
Even if you do go off and do other stuff for a bit in that movie, ultimately it's always going to come back to that main point.
That's true.
A lot faster than a series would.
I've just noticed the folly of my ways here because I've got a note that says, "Wow, a hologram window TV that's 5x4." When the news was on, but I realised that's probably just because that's what the news channel was broadcasting in. I'm sure that screen was capable of widescreen, but when I saw it, I was like, "Huh, that's a little retro futuristic."
Yeah. Well, that lends itself to the idea that Tony Stark's technology is beyond what technology already is. I mean, there's that part where the scientists they're trying to make the little arc reactor to power the suit, and then they're like, the technology doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So, which is quite.
Oh, when he said, "I'm sorry, I'm not Tony Stark," he sounded so like apologetic.
You brought that up now, so I'm going to talk about it. That is, I would say, a very good theme in the movie, is that people aren't Tony Stark. Obadiah says it at the very beginning when he's accepting the reward. He goes, "Oh, I'm not Tony Stark," and it kind of shows that point as he's going on. He's not Tony Stark, and that idea is pushed onto other people, like that scientist that says he's not Tony Stark, and that whole thing just keeps popping up. I think it's an interesting thing to mention that he is such an idealized person because of his incredible things he's done, which I think is just very interesting, and the people that are comparing him to him, where he's just sort of there dealing with a lot of shit.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, is very interesting. It's a prominent thing that always pops up.
Yeah.
Is that he is a very unique person.
Well, he's a genius.
And it's very hard to replicate anything even close to what he can do.
Yeah. Yeah, that is cool. I didn't notice that, but I'm glad you pointed it out. I'll be looking for that in future Iron Man movies now too. People being like, "I'm not Tony Stark."
Well, you'll see that in Iron Man 2 very early on, because when he's in the court case of all the like people who failed to like replicate his stuff.
Oh yeah.
So that's immediately in your face. It's like, yeah, they're not Tony Stark. Like,
yeah.
And then fucking what's his face pops in with his whips and does that little dance thing with us. Iron Man 2 is such a weird movie.
Yeah. All I remember about Iron Man 2 is the dude with the whips, and it was on a racetrack. And also Iron Man had a suitcase which he threw down, and
Yep.
he put the suit on him. And everyone
Yeah,
in the
he,
stands
he,
was just like,
built it around a boat ship.
everyone in the stands, if I remember right, which I might not be, it's been years, were just like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, nice, polite golf clap, woo! And I was like, what?
Yeah, Mickey Rourke, that's his name. Mickey Rourke. The guy who plays Whiplash is Mickey Rourke.
That's something to note for this podcast series. Don't
it
expect
called
me to
Whiplash?
know any
I think it's
actor
called Whiplash.
names because I have not paid attention to that.
The only reason I know Mickey Rourke's name is because he was in a game, which I can't remember the game, but he was in a game that it's notoriously bad. But every time he would kill someone, he would insult them about 5 times. I can't remember what it is. I will have to look it up. But yeah, it's fucking notorious. It's great.
Yeah. How mad would you be if your boss called you downstairs and was like, "Hey, yeah, sorry, yeah, no big deal. Could you just perform heart surgery on me real quick? Yeah, no. That scene was
Yeah.
amazing.
Like the fucking casual. Oh, nothing's wrong. I'm just going into cardiac.
Yeah, that's Tony Stark to a T. Oh my god, that was amazing. I say it's a super high stakes moment presented as humour, which is, you know,
Yeah.
I think we'll be seeing a lot of that every time we talk about Iron Man in the future. Also,
Oh, sorry, Karen.
No, you go.
got another point. I was just going to move on to another point, honestly, if you've still got stuff to say about that.
I was just going to say as a side note, when he's putting the Mark II together, it reminds me, like, the way he's talking to his robots, it reminds me of when I'm putting Lego together. That's all. The one
Fair
time I did
enough.
it. Yeah, I was just, I don't know why, it just reminded me of it.
That's fair. But yeah, I think the first flight stuff is pretty good.
It's really good.
And I think that's what sells me on Robert Downey Jr. being Tony Stark, is that there's this incredible joy that you just feel from it. Like, there's the shot when he falls, and obviously when he freezes over and he falls, and then he manages to save himself, and that shot where he's laughing as he comes out of that nosedive is honestly one of my favorite moments from that film.
That is a really
Just
good moment.
because of his reaction, it's so good.
On that, I put down that they saw Spider-Man's, you know, in Spider-Man 1 when he's learning how to web sling and he skims the road. It's like, oh, they just went to one
Yeah.
of that, didn't they? They did it from higher up.
Yeah, they did it from higher up with, you know,
Higher stakes, yeah.
yeah, for sure. But like his reaction, just like how he's just so happy with everything, from panic to joy. It was
a really
that's
good.
that's just a trope that happens a lot in Spider-Man as well, and I love that. I love it when it pops up.
Yeah.
And I think it's very, very well done. Also when he obviously first like takes off through the thing, because yeah, there's just so much joy there, and you can really feel it.
Yeah. Extinguisher Bot deserves more.
More screen time.
He's
for
just
Extinguisher
trying
Bot.
to help stop threatening him.
I mean, he did help in the
slash
end.
her. Slash them robot.
Did help in the end. Gave him the.
That was a different
the-
robot, right? Because Extinguisher Bot is literally just an extinguisher on a stick.
I
or
think
something.
he was just holding the extinguisher.
Oh, okay. Alright.
That's why it was a joke, because it was being funky all like for the whole time, and then did the one thing to save his life, literally.
I guess, yeah, that's more symbolism, isn't
That's
it?
why
Tony
that's why he acknowledges it.
He dismisses important things for small reasons, I guess. You can make a case for that.
Yeah. Yeah, like, I mean, you can probably include that. Yeah.
Have you noticed that this movie is sponsored by Audi? Every car is an
yeah.
Audi.
But that's like zoom out on the V8 engine.
Yeah.
Fucking, don't make it more obvious, dude. Jesus.
I laughed. The third time there was an Audi, I was like, right, I'm writing a note on this.
Something that I noticed as well, he does a lot, is whenever he's in some sort of stress, he always kicks the fucking you know those little sort of like mechanic board things with wheels that you use to like go onto cars to do work on them.
Yeah.
Whenever he's in stress and like something's happened, he always kicks them out of the way. He does it. The first time I noticed he does it is when he after the Mark II flight, and he's got like the thing on his head because obviously he smacked his head, and he kicks it out of the way. The second time is when he's obviously crawling on the floor trying to get to the other little reactor thing. Don't even know the actual name for that. But yeah, when he's crawling along the floor, when he's like fucking dying, and he like kicks it out, he like pushes it out the way. I mean, part of me at that point was like, just use it to get across the room.
Yeah.
But
That'd
yeah,
be cool. Like
something I
skateboard.
noticed is because it kept popping up in those specific situations.
That's funny.
It was really weird.
I wonder if that runs for Iron Man 2 and Iron Man 3 as well.
I
Also,
don't think he really touches the cars or anything in those ones, though.
Am I right?
He becomes full on focus on the suits.
am I right in thinking that, jumping ahead a bit, the kid in Iron Man, the kid who he rescues when he's in the Mark II question mark or Mark 3, I forget. That kid, is he the kid from Iron Man 3 or was that a different kid? It's been so long since I saw Iron Man
don't
3.
know. Don't know. Couldn't tell you.
Also, friend, I don't know if this is going to be a thing going forwards in Marvel movies, but there was a Stan Lee cameo in there.
It was.
Did you miss it?
Around. No, I saw it.
Okay. The way you said there was, I was like,
I was playing along.
okay, sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. He pops in at the at event.
Yeah. Also, when he goes to get Pepper a drink, right, and then he gets distracted, I was like, he never got her drink. I was like, that's a really subtle indicator of, you know, the future turmoils in their relationship. And then she brings it up later in the movie. I was like, oh, okay, it's not subtle. It's it shouldn't have been subtle, but I was like, I thought I was being really intelligent because I picked up on that. I was like, ooh, look at me.
I mean, it wasn't subtle, but it also played into the characters very well as well. Like, she would bring it up just to call him out. I think that it's very much played into her character. So.
That also leads into.
Oh yeah, remember that time you left me? I was like, all right.
Yeah, it also leads into my favourite point about the movie, which we'll get into a bit later. But I think we're approaching the final fight now. Hang on, have I skipped a bit? Oh no, this is when he goes back to the Middle East. I said they make Iron Man look powerful and invincible, but quickly shirk that by having a tank shoot him out of the sky to make him mortal again. I thought that was very important.
Yeah. The absolute sass on that rocket launch. Jesus Christ. Fucking fire a tank at me, I dare. Oh yeah, he has his not look at explosions call moment, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does, yeah.
Right,
that's also a shot I see
walks
used
away.
in Sky Movies adverts a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was like, yeah, okay, cool, guys don't look at explosions, I get it. That might be where that came from, actually, I don't even know.
It's funny because the way that Iron Man's suit is, he looks so angry all the time. So I see it as him just being very angry that he just got shot out of the sky by a tank.
Yeah, that's true.
Also, like, whoever was in that tank, holy shit.
I know, right? Good shot.
That's some accuracy.
Yeah.
Like.
They're like, I got him. Probably.
Yeah.
So I wrote down very exasperated. He sent Pepper undercover. So this is a little bit later in the movie after the final fight starts happening. I said he sent Pepper undercover. She's gonna get captured, isn't she? He's gonna rescue her, and they're gonna smooch. And I guess I'll talk about it now. That's my favorite part about the movie. That doesn't happen. Like, yeah, she gets found out, but they don't go for the whole damsel in distress route. In fact, she helps him. He's constantly asking for her help in the final fight. And my absolute favourite thing, because I'm not a huge Pepper Potts lover, but I just think, like, the way this all went down kind of shirks superhero movie expectations. My favourite part about the whole movie is how he doesn't get the girl. At the end, she doesn't kiss him. And I think that's important after you see Tony Stark just living this billionaire lifestyle. If they're going to have a proper relationship, it has to be earned. And it doesn't matter if it was a valid thing that he had to abandon her for on that night when he didn't bring the drinks back. The fact that he didn't was a flaw, and she makes him pay for it. She doesn't kiss him, and that's probably one of the reasons why he ends up loving her, right?
Yeah.
I know in Iron Man 2 eventually they do end up smooching, but if I remember right, that's at the end of that movie. I might be wrong. That's my catchphrase, by the way. I've learned. I might be wrong.
Well, that's the whole idea with the movie as well. Is that the ending is very good and kind of climaxes the entire relationship really, because it's always built up that he wouldn't be able to do anything without her, and that comes a lot more obvious when they're at the charity event, and she says, "Oh, well, you don't even know your social security number and all this stuff."
Yeah. 8.
And it very much sets that up for the ending.
Yeah.
Which makes it very good. I think that she ends up doing all that to end up winning the fight.
Yeah. He's a billionaire, but he can't have everything.
Yeah.
Until I'm
also, if we're on the subject of Pepper Potts, I wanna go into more about just relationships in general.
Sure.
In that, like people's relationships with Tony, in that, so he comes back, and obviously he then makes this grand claim that he's not going to produce any more weapons anymore. Rhodey and Obadiah both are like, yeah, you're crazy, go chill out. Well, Pepper is just like, she's still like supporting whatever he's doing.
Yeah.
And I mean, when she sees that he's working on stuff, she's like, well, I thought you weren't making weapons. What are you doing? Like, rather than being like, oh, you're making weapons again, it's less of that. It's more a case of, oh, well, you made this decision. Why are you not sticking to it?
Yeah,
like
that's true. She's more like, be true to yourself.
Yes. And then both Rhodey and, like, there's that part where he goes to see Rhodey and he's like, oh, I'm working on something. He's like, I don't want to know about it. And then leaves. And it's like, all right.
Yeah.
Like, that's why he can kind of, that's why the relationship between Tony Stark and Pepper Potts is very real in the movie, because it is built upon trust, and there is like that mutual trust going back and forth. Whereas it feels like he almost has to earn other people's respect and stuff through, like, when he eventually makes the Iron Man suit, and then Rhodey's like, oh, that's cool, and then actually like joins him on stuff.
Yeah.
You know.
That is very true. I like that analysis. Yeah. Good analysis, Reese.
Yeah. I just think relationships are a big deal on that, because there's the whole idea, obviously, the portrayal of the mentor stuff as well. He also treats him like he's crazy.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's interesting. I think it's just an interesting study on just the characters and how they interact with him specifically.
So, shout out to the makeup team, by the way, because when Tony had his chesticle removed, he looked like shit.
Oh yeah, he did.
You could really like feel just his absolute lack of any kind of strength. I just wanted to make a note of that. That was really well done.
Yeah, he looked pretty gross.
Yeah. Why didn't Baldy steal a Mark III while he was there, instead of going back to the Mark 1? I later saw that he had made his own modifications to the Mark 1.
He made an entirely new suit.
I thought he took the original Mark 1 and then changed it.
No, because the Mark 1 was in the room, and then they go, oh, I thought it would have been bigger.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay, he did make an entirely new suit. Fair enough. He was probably like, yeah, mine's better because it's bigger.
Yeah, pretty much.
He's a bit two-dimensional, isn't he?
He is very, like, at the end, yeah, for sure. Like, he's quite cunning. Like, one of the things that's interesting about him as a character is, I mean, there's a subversion of expectation, because you expect him just to be, oh, he's just a wealthy man who is worried about his money because of Tony Stark's decisions, that, you know, the Stark market stuff. Like, that's played up a lot with the company and how their stocks are crashing as a result of what he's doing. And so Obadiah is trying to fix that and stuff, and then he's like, oh, well, the solution is shut Tony Stark out. So they plays it off like, oh, someone's trying to shut you out. Oh, like this.
But then later on they're like, oh yeah, I ordered the hit on you back in the Middle East. So it's like, wait, but why?
He doesn't. He says that. He says that. Well, probably because he just wants to own the company. Because
I guess.
I think the idea is that he technically owned the company.
Yeah. Until
Tony Stark was 21, and then Tony Stark took over because it was his. You know, it was his. It was his to have.
Yeah.
And so I think, like, just Obadiah just wanted more. I guess he felt like he put so much time and effort into running that company. So yeah, this kid comes along and just takes it, you know.
Yeah, I guess that's just my issue though, is that he's a man who's driven by money and power, and he doesn't bat an eyelid to selling weapons to terrorists and murdering people, including the person who he's meant to. I'm not saying you should necessarily make him sympathetic, but it does make him very two-dimensional. I didn't really. He was more interesting before the inevitable betrayal, if you know what I mean.
I think that was the point, though. He seems like he is very, like, calculated. All these things he's doing are that, like, you know, what he's doing is very, you know, trying to shut Tony out, trying to basically ruin him or whatever. Yeah. But it, like, that's the thing, like, and then he ends up just having this very basic thing that he wants to do, and all of it is driven by money. And it is a very basic villain I don't know what the word is now. I can't think of it. But it's it's a very motivation. It's very basic motivation. Rather than being just pure evil, which is typically obviously a lot harder to write, I think, because just being evil is like, well, why, you know?
Yeah.
But like being driven by this idea of money, I think it was a case of he'd had a taste of what it was like being on top, I guess, and had sort of he had that all stripped away from him.
Yeah.
Because of he wasn't a Stark and he wasn't Tony Stark specifically. I'm not Tony Stark, you know.
I think
And
that would have
I think
been.
that's what kind of drives him as well, is the idea that he isn't Tony Stark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they could have shown that a bit more, though. Maybe.
Yeah, for sure. But I think there's enough context there to like
Yeah.
kind of derive that for it. But it definitely isn't obvious for sure.
Fair enough. Anyways, friend, I think that's a podcast. Unless there was anything else specifically you wanted to bring up.
Let me just. I haven't read my notes the entire time, but I will have a quick. I wanted to mention the CGI. What did you think of the CGI?
I thought it was good in places, but in other places it was obvious and aged badly. Some of the explosions.
Yeah.
But I think where it really mattered, like for big fight at the end and the actual Iron Man suit stuff, I think that held up and was good.
Yeah, that was very good. I think the only issue I had, I think the CGI was very good. I mean, it came out what 12 years ago, and it still looks pretty good. It still holds up. I mean,
yeah, it's just the
some
odd
of the CGI in that was
explosion, I
better than Black Panther, and Black Panther had some issues with some of the
Oh
CGI.
yeah, we'll get to that.
Rubber Man issue. But like the only real issue I saw with CGI was the part where he comes out of the cave. In the Mark One,
yeah.
it looks like claymation.
It does, doesn't it?
Very,
and also, just
but
before
the
he comes
issue-
out the cave, when he shoots that guy against the wall, that didn't look right.
Yeah.
That entire sequence
Yeah.
still looks a bit weird when it
But
came
like,
to the...
it's just, I think it's one of the things that people say about CGI. It's easier to shoot CGI in darker scenes, which is why it looked fine in the scenes where he was in the caves. But as soon as he came out into the sunlight, you could see like it was CG.
Do you
Like,
think
could
that's
tell.
why he was doing like the fight scene at the end and his first flight scene? They were both at night.
I mean, it makes sense for the context of the place as well as that. Yes, I think it makes sense, and it's like the same reason why Venom is at night. You know. It
I've never
makes
seen
sense
Venom.
for the context.
I like this for this.
But the CGI, Venom's alright.
Yeah.
I think it's an alright film. It's enjoyable.
Okay, podcast done for that one then.
It does have glaring issues, but the CGI in that is pretty good. I
Yeah.
think it looks good. Like
Yeah.
even in the like in the scenes where it's quite light, it looks good.
I guess it's because you have more like shit to calculate when it comes to lighting and the way the sun bounces off in the right ways and shading. Whereas at night
Yeah,
there's
it's
less...
just because you just draw more attention to it. Where it's dark, you can hide things.
Yeah.
So you can hide bad CGI, so you can kind of like cut some corners and stuff here and there. But in terms of just generally, I think the Mark II looked a bit funky in places as well. But for the most part, it came out in 2008 and it looks fantastic.
Yeah, it does.
So,
I mean, I think the biggest takeaway is you look at the Iron Man suit and you can kind of like put it next to the Infinity War Iron Man suit and be like, yeah, they both look like Iron Man suits, instead of one going, oh, that one doesn't look quite real. And I think this set the standard, right, for superhero movies. Like, it wasn't just the story and like the action scenes and all that, it was the look of it that made people go, oh fuck, we should be doing superhero movies, we can do these now. Like, the reason why people didn't make these before was because of the technological limitations.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's a great point.
But that's more or less it, I'd say. I just wanted to say, like, in general summary of the movie, I think its general idea is it does subvert a lot of hero tropes, and it does feel very messy for a hero movie, if you know what I mean. Like the way it's sort of presented is a very messy superhero movie because it like goes back on so many of these tropes in that it's set up being like, to start with, you shouldn't feel good about this character Tony Stark, but then he tries to redeem himself for the entire movie.
And instead of most origin superhero movies, they start off powerless and then they earn things throughout the movie and they become powerful, whereas he starts with power but he has to earn his humanity.
Yes,
it's kind of the other way around in a way.
But with Iron Man, it's more of an understanding of his humanity, I think.
Yeah,
because he it's one of those things, because he believed he was going to die, it did somewhat awaken something that was like, okay,
Oh, this is how
I'm
other people
doing
feel when they
shitty
get my
things.
guns pointed at them.
yeah, exactly. Like it's like it's all good pointing a gun at someone, but when they're pointing it at you, it's a very different thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, very good film.
Yeah.
In summary.
In summary. So next week, for those listening who want to watch along with us, I better check it's on Disney Plus. Hang on a second.
um,
I'm not sure if it is.
what were you?
The
going to
Incredible
suggest?
Hulk, because that's the next one in the MCU.
Oh god. Do you think? I don't think they would have. I think they probably buried that, and rightly so.
Incredible Hulk.
It's
Oh.
not that bad. It's not that bad of a movie.
No, they just have the animated series. Should we?
We'll ignore that. Just because I
Okay.
feel like it's fine without it. I feel you don't really need it.
So
Because the story that they do for him in Avengers is good
Different.
enough, I think.
yeah, it's like a different actor. They hardly reference him at all in any way, like his past. Yeah, so we're skipping the Incredible Hulk. I hope that's okay with everyone. Maybe we'll go back in a future episode and look at it,
Yeah,
but
we
it doesn't
may find
add
things
much to the MCU anyway. So that's some admin we just did live on podcast. Hope you enjoyed that. Next week we'll be watching Iron Man 2, and I get to keep this wallpaper engine set up for another week.
Is Iron Man 2 still Phase 1?
It is. It's the next film. It goes Iron Man,
Ah.
Incredible Hulk, Iron Man 2, and then 4 Captain America and Avengers.
Oh,
I thought
shit.
Iron Man 2 was Phase 2 as well. But Iron Man 3 is the first
Oh.
movie in Phase 2.
What happens in Iron Man 2 again? I'm trying to remember.
Some
It's
dude
Black
has
Star.
whips, and Tony has a suitcase. The end.
I'm
Also
just trying to
Formula
remember
1.
if there's any references to other stuff,
Hmm.
like other MCU stuff.
Oh, the
Because I know
post-credit
there
scene.
isn't Thor.
I liked how the post-credit scene for Iron Man was just, we're doing an expanded universe. Oh, okay.
Yeah, fucking, he just turns up and he's just like, oh, we're doing an extended universe, and you're invited.
Yeah. Although I know at the time that was probably super exciting, right? Like, wait, does that mean they're doing like 4 as well?
was
Like,
weird.
how's that gonna work? Is it gonna be in the same world? Like,
It
yeah.
was weird out of context for me when I first watched that. It's like, huh. But yeah.
that's a podcast, I do believe. I have thoroughly enjoyed my time on this podcast.
Also, something I forgot earlier.
Yeah.
The Iron Man song is by Black Sabbath.
Yeah.
And also, Back in Black plays at one point, but I don't think that's Black Sabbath. I think that's AC/DC.
Oh, okay.
Or was it Def Leppard? Oh, I don't know. I need to listen. Oh, I'm sorry, everyone.
Well, thank you.
It is AC/DC. I was right the first time. My music knowledge has not betrayed me.
Thank you for joining us on our podcast, Songs Without Songs, and we will see you next week. Same,
this guitar riff in this one point.
same Twitch time, same Twitch. Reece, should we do 5 p.m. next week instead?
Can do.
Yeah,
If it's better.
because I feel a little bit rushed for time right now. So that's kind
fair.
of. If it feels like I'm trying to rush the end of a podcast, it's because I am. Sorry, I'll
dare you.
plan better for next week, and we'll start at 5 p.m. So that's what we'll do. The
Awesome.
VOD for this will be on the YouTube channel, and I'm going to see if I can do something about making an audio file available to put on devices where you can actually listen to it while you walk somewhere instead of the stupid YouTube app where you need YouTube Premium to do that, and it doesn't
Yeah,
even
YouTube
exist
sucks.
anymore. Yeah, but for now, this is what's going to be up. So thank you for listening / watching, and we will see you next week.
See you then.